build instant rapport with anyone? Well, in my experience, one of the best ways to do this is to leverage a skill every single one of us already has. But most of us rarely ever use it, except for with our friends and family. The truth is, it could help us immensely during social interactions. My name is Nomi Malik, and you're watching Socially Charismatic. Have you ever been at a bar and tried to talk to a cute girl standing next to you, but received a cold, short, and almost uncomfortable response? I see that happen to guys all the time. But it doesn't happen to all guys, right? Because haven't you also been in a situation where seconds later, you notice that same girl talking and laughing with a guy who approached her right after you? So what's going on? Why do we sometimes get cold responses in those seemingly low-pressure social situations? Or better yet, why do some guys always seem to get a much more positive response, leaving you thinking you're just not cool or good-looking enough? Well, there are a lot of subcommunication variables at play, but perhaps the most critical variable that affects what kind of response we get is how we say what we say. In other words, it's in our delivery. Or as we'll learn in a minute, it's in the approach to our delivery. You know, delivery is a funny thing, by the way. I've seen a lot of videos that make delivery out to be somewhat of a science. Like we have to say specific things in a specific order so that we can establish a higher status in the social interaction, yada, yada, yada. That's bull. It's actually much more fundamental than that. Let's go a little deeper. In situations where you get a cold response from someone, like in the bar example, most of us tend to get in our heads and overthink it. And as a result, we end up acting in the way that we think the other person wants us to act. Think of it as trying to act cool. We do this in an effort to be seen as significant or even likable. Unfortunately, it's a severe miscalculation on our part. Because the problem with using our perception of how others want us to act when communicating is that those actions, feelings, and often those words, they're not ours. Sure, they're coming through our bodies and our mouths, but they're not coming from us. They're not our true thoughts and feelings. Another problem is that our perceptions are formed by our life lens, or frame, which is the way we see the world. And our perceptions, of course, are usually tainted by negative past experiences, which means they're not based on what's actually happening right now, in this moment. Aside from a few of us who've learned not to be affected by social pressures, like that guy at the bar who stole that cute girl from you, most of us allow it to dictate how we act in a social situation. But unfortunately, when we do this, we kill the one skill that actually would allow us to flourish in those moments. We kill our authenticity. And authenticity is the key to building instant rapport with anyone. When we're not authentic, we create an incongruence, which is basically a misalignment between our thoughts, words, and our actions. That incongruence typically subcommunicates a nervous energy, which our conversation partner picks up on, and it all goes downhill from there. This also gives off a vibe that we might be hiding something, which basically subcommunicates red flags all over the place. Authenticity, on the other hand, communicates a relaxed and confident energy. This is exactly what happens to guys all the time in bars. Guys who struggle with girls tend to have a delivery that comes across as unauthentic and ingenuine, and therefore causes an incongruence which creates a nervous and unsure energy that the girls pick up on. Naturally, the interactions for those guys don't go the way they want them to. The delivery of guys who are successful in those situations, on the other hand, comes across as much more natural, because they're able to create congruence. The reason congruence is so important is because people usually reciprocate or pick up on the energy or vibe they receive from someone else. This is caused by something called mirror neurons. If you've ever been around somebody who's yawning, chances are you've probably started yawning moments later. Our brains are wired to pick up on other people's state of mind or energy. In a social context, if you've ever been around someone who's, let's just say, subtly awkward or nervous, you've probably felt uncomfortable and wanted to get away, but you didn't know why. That's because your mirror neurons were picking up on that other person's nervous energy. If you've ever been around someone who's chill and really present, you may have felt really good around them, but again, you wouldn't be able to put your finger on exactly why. So if authenticity is the secret to instantly building rapport because it makes the other person feel more comfortable and relaxed, which more often than not leads to a more positive interaction, how do we actually go about being authentic in social situations? Well, that part's actually quite simple, but I find it's perhaps one of the most difficult things for the majority of people to do during social interactions. If authenticity is always available to us, how can we channel it when we need it the most? Well, the answer is just to engage people in the same way you'd engage your family and friends. When you talk to people you're close with, you don't feel nervous, right? The reason why we're not uncomfortable around our friends and family, and why we're able to be genuine and authentic around them, is because there's not as much expectation on how the interaction should go. And expectation, unfortunately, is the mother of all of your social stresses. Expecting social interactions to go a certain way puts so much unnecessary pressure on us, and that's usually where all the nervousness and anxiety comes from. If you can detach yourself from the outcome of the social interaction, I promise you that you'll feel much more relaxed, and that relaxed energy will carry through in how you communicate, both verbally and non-verbally. Trust me when I say that this is one of those things you just have to do, and when you start to get positive feedback, it's going to get easier and easier for you. It's almost like you have to give yourself permission to be yourself in social interactions, and then be okay with how that turns out. The reality is, not everyone is going to like you, even when you're being authentic or genuine. And that's okay. But if you're authentic in your social interactions, you'll find that more often than not, people will like you, because you come across as someone who's honest and isn't hiding anything, which to most people is a very refreshing thing, especially in the context of social interactions at a bar, where 95% of the people there are being completely fake with one another. It's hard to connect with someone who comes across like they're putting on an act. And that's what you have to stop doing if you're committed to changing the way your social life unfolds. So next time you're at a bar, and you want to strike up a conversation with that cute girl next to you, don't act the way you think she wants you to act. Just be yourself. Be relaxed. Talk to her like she's already a good friend of yours, and I promise you, you'll get a much better reaction than you've ever gotten in the past.